Greetings to one and all present here or those who are watching this video. I am Nitheesh, Assistant Professor of English from Ratnam College of Arts and Science. I have been dealing the topics of phonetics for the students of PG Department of English Literature, and this portion which I am going to take is one of the portions which is being prescribed to the students of first MA English Literature. So today's topic we will discuss about organs of speech as mentioned here. Yes. Speech organs. When we make sound, for example, first of all I want to give a brief introduction about phonetics. Phonetics is a scientific study of speech sounds. Whenever we speak, there are certain organs which are involved in the process of creating that sound which we are speaking. So in order to complete the process, several organs have to work in coordination in order to produce a perfect speech sound. So this subject, which is called as phonetics, especially deals with the scientific study, which means that we will also describing or studying or dealing with the human anatomy, also with the acoustics and auditory kinds of things which are enabling a personality to utter a English sound in a perfect manner. For example, while we are uttering the word button, B-U-T-T-O-N, the actual correct proper pronunciation of that word is button. We will have to say it as button and not button. So these corrections will be made only when the speech organs which are involved in the process of creating that speech sound works in perfect manner. So for example, we see here speech organs. When we make sound, there are certain words of our vocal tract. Vocal tract involves two basic cavities, which involves the vocal cavity and the nasal cavity, and the vocal cavity is any area within the mouth, and the nasal cavity comprises of the nose and the other areas. And the production of speech sound does not happen only with the vocal tract, vocal or the nasal cavity. It has to produce from the area of vocal tract, which is the lung region. This region involves in the production of speech sound. That is what we call it as vocal tract. They move, they block the air, and they helps us to produce sounds, words, sentences or languages. Simply say that organs that produce sounds, we call them speech organs. For example, in every word which have been created or spoken by a personality, the air is being exhaled. You can check it out yourself. When we are uttering a word, the air will be exhaled from the lungs. That is, we call it as pulmonic aggressive airstream mechanism, which has been utilized in the production of speech sounds, especially or exclusively in the language of English. So while we are speaking, the air from the lung will have to travel through the esophagus or the food pipe and the trachea, which is also called as windpipe, and they will have to travel and will have to reach the vocal cavity, and while we are speaking, the sound is being produced. So this is the diagram of speech organs, the organs which are all involved in the production of speech sounds. For example, as I told you, the windpipe, esophagus, vocal cord, and this area is called as the vocal cavity, and this area will be called as the nasal cavity. We will deal these things in detail. Actually, before going into the organs of speech, we will have to know about the articulators. Articulators are the organs which are primarily necessary for the organs to act in coordination in order to produce a speech sound, we can say. The articulators are of two types, active and passive articulators. Active articulators are those which actively take part in the production of speech sound. That is, those active articulators will be movable in nature. For example, we see here, active articulators are the muscles inside our mouth. It is movable organs which are principally the lip and the tongue. So in creating a crux, we can tell that the lip and the tongue of the oral cavity can be concluded as the active articulator. Because why? Because they have the tendency to move. These are muscles. It is movable organs. The organs which have the capacity to move themselves in the production of speech sounds are called as active articulators. Next. Then the second one is passive articulators. These are more of a bony structures which is difficult to be moved. For example, there are some parts of the speech organs which are difficult to be moved. As I say, for example, as I told in the active articulators, those are primarily muscles. So muscles can be moved and flexible in nature. But on the other hand, bones are very hard and rigid structures. It is difficult for us to move bone-like structure in order to produce a speech sound. So the passive articulator are bones inside our vocal tract. These bones, call them passive articulators, as they are immovable parts which are the upper teeth and hard palate, alveolar ridge, post-alveolar region, soft palate. So the upper portion of the mouth, that is this archy portion, the archy portion of the mouth which is inside, which is in the oral cavity, is called as the passive articulator. It comprises of teeth ridge, which is also called as alveolar ridge, then hard palate, then soft palate. The soft palate is also called as velum. These are the passive articulators. The oral cavity. The active and passive articulators together comprises to form the oral cavity in general. We will see the oral cavity is defined as anteriorly by the lips, which is the oral cavity starts from the lips. It has to go inside with the passive articulator, which is the hard palate and soft palate. Then it will come in contact with the uvula, then the tongue, and again the lips. This entire circular portion is called as the oral cavity. Next slide. This is the diagram of the oral cavity. It starts with the upper front teeth, then the teeth ridge or the alveolar ridge, then the hard palate, soft palate, uvula, then the tongue, and the lower teeth and the lip. This thing is entirely called as the oral cavity. Nasal cavity. Nasal cavity starts from the nose, that is the exterior region which is visible to human naked eye is the nose, which comprises of the important organ of nasal cavity. But the nasal cavity starts from the nose and it extends to the area of a pharyngeal region, which will be discussed later, because the pharyngeal region is an internal organ which cannot be seen through naked eye. It can be seen only with the help of anatomical classes and those things. See, this is the diagram of nasal cavity. This is the nose which we are seeing in the outer side, and the nasal cavity extends from here to here. This is the pharynx region, which will be approximately in the region of this area. The nasal cavity extends up to this. This pink area will be comprised as nasal cavity, and this yellow area will be comprised as the oral cavity. Pharynx, as I told you earlier, pharyngeal region is one of the important region because it creates the production of it creates the manner in which speech sound is being produced. It has the tendency or the ability to block the air which is being passing from the lung, which is produced by the pulmonic egressive airstream mechanism. The pharynx stimulate the organs to produce the sounds or the stream of flow of air to either oral cavity or nasal cavity. For example, some sounds like and all those sounds will be created only with the help of nasal effects. That is, no oral organisms or organs of speech will not be used in the production of such sounds. So, during that instances, the pharyngeal area will be shutting down and the air will be not able to flow through the vocal cavity, and it will be flowing through the nasal cavity, thus enabling the sounds to be called as a nasal sounds. Yes. So, this is the pharyngeal region. This region is completely called as pharyngeal region. Here the air which is being created by the lungs will be coming here. Here this is the soft palate. This pharyngeal region will decide whether the sound is being created will be vocal sound or a nasal sound. If it is a vocal sound, this soft palate will strike to the back of this wall and the air flow to the nasal sound will be shut down, so that the air will be flowing through the only through oral cavity. If it is a nasal sound, this area will be open so that the air can flow through this and it can be created with the nasal sound. Yes. Next one. This is the larynx. Larynx is generally called as the Adam's apple. Generally, in usually means the throat region will having a prolonged outside swelling, which is generally called as Adam's apple, but it is actually called as larynx. Here, some of the important organs which we will have to take into consideration are epiglottis and glottis. Here, trachea is the windpipe. Glottis and epiglottis is one of the important organs because they also indulge in the activity of regulating the airflow, because they are like a ball-like structure. Once the glottis is open, the air will flow through that, and if the glottis is being closed, the air will not flow. Or the airflow will be stringed, or the airflow will be designated by some friction, causing some vibration. Thus, the sounds are being classified into vowels and consonants. Here, the larynx, important organs of larynx. Larynx contains two small bands of elastic tissues which are thought as flat strips, rubbers lying opposite to each other across the air passage. So, here in the laryngeal area, there will be a ball-like structure, a round structure which is called as vocal cords. Next, please. This is the actual image of the CT scan of an vocal cord. This is a vocal cord when it is being closed in structure. This is a vocal cord when it is partially open, and so on. This vacant area is called as glottis, and when air is being transferred from the lungs to the mouth or nasal cavity, whatsoever might be, the air will be passing through this passage. If this passage is being open, the airflow will be easier in nature, so that there will be no friction, thus the sound created will be vowel sound. Here, the glottis is being closed, so the airflow will be difficult in order to pass through the vocal cord. So, the sound thus produced will be having some frictions or vibrations, and that sounds will be called as consonants. This is the anatomical image of vocal cord. Here, this is called as glottis, this is epiglottis, and these two string-like structure which is present is called as vocal cord, and this opening area is called as glottis. Voice and voiceless sound. As I said earlier, the role of glottis is very important in creation of a speech sound. When the glottis is being closed, during the production of a consonant sound, there will be a friction, that is a vibration which is being caused when the air is being flowing from the lungs to the vocal tract. So when the voiced sound are being voiced sound are those which are being produced with the production of vibration or friction. In simple terms, when a sound is being produced and there is a friction or vibration which is occurring during the production of speech sound, it is called as a voiced sound. And the sounds which are being produced without a friction or vibration during the production of sound will be a voiceless sound. Yes. These are some examples of voice and voiceless sounds. Here the glottal stop means that the glottis is open so that the sound which is being produced will have a vibration or friction. Here the glottis is open so that the voiced sound is created. Here the air passage is free so that the air will be easily going and there will be no friction or vibration which will be being produced. So we have seen enough of the organs of speech, and we will deal with the later we'll deal the other organs of speech which are involved in the production of speech sound in the upcoming classes. And thank you. Cheers.